Hi everyone, so this is my gold points mission for Project Zero of UC Berkeley CS61B class taught by Professor Hug. My project is called Monster Mania. And so the overall concept is an interactive game where the user controls a monster that can collide with planets. And every planet the monster collides with earns the user 1 point, and the game moves on to a new level every 10 points. And so for the monster class, or how I went about implementing the monster was I added a new class, and the monster is controlled by the user's mouse or trackpad. And so aside from the standard variables such as x and y position or velocity for the monster, I also implemented drag and mass variables, which were used in calculating the velocity and xy position. And the biggest part of implementing the monster was the collision detection, which I will talk more about in the next slide. So the monster has 3 core functionalities. The main one is collisions with planet detection. And so collision is considered any time the monster's x and y position is the same as a planet's x and y position. So for collision, I implemented a collision counter as well as a color flicker, which changes the colors of the monster while the monster is currently colliding with a planet. The next 2 features of collision were implemented after I found a few bugs during the first trial run of the monster game. And so basically what was happening was it kept overcounting the same collision as multiple collisions. And so how I went to combat this was I added a timer which keeps track of the time of the last collision and compares it to the time of the current collision. The current collision needs to be like a reasonable time away from the last collision in order for it to count. There's also no double collision allowed, so for example, if you collided with the Earth, you must collide with a new planet like the Sun before you can collide with the Earth again and get points. And there's also a first collision safety period or grace period, which is a period in the beginning of the game for 10 seconds where any collisions with planets does not actually count for points. And the purpose of this is for both the user to get acquainted with the monster as well as to ensure that no false beginning collisions are counted. For example, when a monster is initialized at an XY position that is at the same position as a planet at the very beginning of the game. There's also randomized properties. There's 3 randomized properties for a monster: image, drag, and mass. Image randomized property is it randomizes between 4 different colors of a monster, and this is activated both on collisions with planets as well as when a level switches. There's also the drag and mass, which changes in a new level. The update and draw are pretty standard. Change velocity and position as well as the drawing. Okay, and for end body extreme, there are some major changes. In main, I initialized the monster, and inside the while loop in main, the following 3 things were done. The drag and force were calculated and constantly updated with the mouse's x and y position. There was level switching every 10 collisions, which happens with a call to the new level method, as well as collision detection, which happens with a call to the is touching method. So is touching checks if the monster's position is the same as any of the planet's positions. And if so, it will call the monster extremes collision method, which increments the counter and changes the monster's image. It also handles the 10-second start buffer, which I talked about in the last slide. And then the new level method is what happens when a new level occurs, and so that will change the background image as well as reset the collision counter back to 0, and it will randomize the monster objects image, drag, and mass. So these are some images that I added to image file, and let us play the game. I'm going to show you how the game works, so I'm going to load this. As you can see, this is the buffer period of the 10 seconds, so no collisions actually count. Once we're out of the buffer period, I can go ahead and touch planets. So something interesting you'll notice is if I stay on the sun, it'll remain at 7 monster touches forever because although I'm technically colliding with the sun, I'm doing it consecutively and so it doesn't really count. So I need to go touch another planet before I can touch the sun again. Let's get to another level. Okay, so we reached 10 touches, so now we're in a new level. This monster, as you can see, is significantly slower. And so the point of changing the settings is so that the game becomes interesting to play even after a few levels. And as you can see, the background also changed. And let's get back to new level.